Around, powered by Teza. Ken, happy trade deadline day to you. And first off, can we start with Justin Verlander? Because it seems like teams are floating in and out of the mix. Do you still think he's going to get traded? And what's the latest that you're seeing and hearing?
I do think he's going to get traded. I don't know where. And the idea that teams are floating in and out, a lot of times in real-time reporting, we don't always get it exactly right at the right time. So things are happening and have happened, but it still is unclear exactly how this is going to play out. And the Astros are in, the Dodgers have been in, although they don't seem very optimistic about this. The Orioles have been in. I'm not sure to what extent. Those are the three teams I've heard most consistently. And do I believe he'll get traded? Yes, I do believe he'll get traded. The Mets, it seems to me, from what I've heard, want to accelerate this thing, want to push this retooling that they're embarking upon. I don't know how it's going to look just yet. None of us do. The Mets probably don't either. But trading Verlander seems to be part of that plan. And what's interesting here, guys, is that if they don't get an offer that they want, they could always hold him. Nothing wrong with keeping Justin Verlander for next year, but you risk injury if he pitches the rest of the season and then you want to trade him in the offseason. That's one problem. And if you really want to kickstart this thing and make the same kind of trade that you made with Max Scherzer, then obviously this is the course you want to take with a $43.33 million pitcher. That's what Scherzer is. That's what Verlander is. Now, at the same time with all this, you wonder what the Mets are going to look like for 2024. We've talked about that. And the main thing here is, what does Verlander want? Like Max Scherzer, full no trade clause. So are the Astros his preference, mere preference, or the only team he'll consider going to? Which other teams would he consider going to? How does that all play out? So this is a complex equation. And one more thing I should mention. So he signed for the $43.3 million next year as well. Then in 2025, he has a conditional player option. If he pitches 140 innings next year, that option kicks in for $35 million if he chooses to exercise it. So that complicates trade discussions and how you value the return. And finally, I'll end with this. The Astros system is not very good. And that could be a problem here as the Mets try to get a comparable player to what they got from the Texas Rangers. Luis Angel Acuna is a top 100 prospect, a highly regarded kid. And if the Astros don't have the equivalent of that, in the Mets' opinion, it becomes a problem.
Ken, I love when you reporters, first of all, thanks for taking 10 minutes out of your busy day to join us. Second of all, you guys love the mystery team. The mystery, it's always a mystery team, right? I'm seeing the Braves are in on Verlander.
AJ, you don't see me talking about mystery teams. The Braves are not in on Verlander, okay?
Okay.
There are always more teams than we know of at the time. Now, I don't like to talk about teams until I know who they are, but I was told last night that there were multiple teams. So we know of some of those teams, right? I just named three of them. Where the others that have been reported stand, I'm not as comfortable reporting because I don't feel they're as strongly in the mix, or even in the mix in some cases. So to say we love the mystery teams, I don't know about that, AJ, but they usually do exist.
Okay, John Heyman has just said that Padres are the
mystery team. I'm not John Heyman.
I know, I'm just saying. He just said, though, the Padres are the mystery team.
You didn't hear me name the Padres, did you?
No, I know. I'm just listen, because as a fan of baseball, I hear mystery team, and I'm like, well, who in the hell is a mystery team? Because there's only certain teams that can take on a Justin Verlander. Right. It's not like he's making
not really,
$8 million.
Not if the Mets are paying the bulk of it. That's the interesting thing here. If the Mets are willing to include this kind of money that they included for Scherzer, then the Orioles and other lower revenue teams become viable in this conversation if Verlander is willing to go to one of those clubs.
So he's only going to go to one. And then after JV, would we say that Eduardo Rodriguez is the best starting pitcher available? Because still, I have all of my eyes on the Orioles today. In my mind, if they end up just getting like a fifth starter, what a failure of a trade deadline.
I agree on all counts here. Eduardo Rodriguez is perhaps the next best available if Blake Snell's not out there, and he doesn't seem to be. He's better than Michael Lorenzen, of course, when he's healthy and right, and better than Jack Flaherty as well. So unless Dylan Cease gets traded, Eduardo Rodriguez is the man here. And Everything I've heard is that the Tigers are asking a high price. This is always what you hear, and MLBTradeRumors.com put it well today. We never hear of a team asking for a reasonable price. So, yes, the Tigers are asking high, and we'll see at the end of the day if they get it. The Dodgers are active for pitching. There are a number of teams active for pitching. Rodriguez is a little bit complicated in the sense that he has an opt-out after this year, and then 3 years, $49 million if he continues on this contract. So the valuation of the deal becomes a little bit trickier with that, but most teams, when they're talking to the Tigers, they're looking at him as a rental, assuming he will opt out.
What about the Brewers? I wanted to throw their name out there. So now they've added 2 bats at the moment. Do you think there's more in their pocket?
Yes, they are looking for a reliever, like virtually every contender for the most part, and the name I heard last night linked to them was Andrew Chafin, Diamondbacks lefty. The Diamondbacks also are talking about Joe Mantiply with teams. Teams are coming at them for these guys. I'm not sure if they're trading for Paul Sewald, it makes sense to subtract a reliever. You just strengthen your bullpen. Why would you want to subtract one? But you never know what teams are thinking as far as, well, if we make this deal here and that deal there, maybe we're better in the aggregate. I don't know. But I did hear that those were possibilities.
And were you surprised, I'll stay in that division for a moment, at what the Cubs did yesterday? Because, hey, they just did what Ohtani and the Angels did, right? Well, really, the Angels announced basically that Ohtani was being kept, and then they made that move to say, no, he's really being kept, and we're going for it. It felt like the Cubs, a day after we kind of hear that Bellinger's staying, they go, here, Candelario to help us in a DH. Well, they have a bad DH spot. Now you can put him at third base, right? And it does improve the offense. I don't feel great about the ball club still, especially with what Stroman put together. Again, really, really crumbling down the stretch here. But what do you think about what the Cubs did? And also if there's any possibility that they try and get involved and make a splash? Like if I'm the Cubs and I'm actually going for it, I know this is crazy, Ken, they can afford Verlander. They need another starter like that. If you really think you're going for it this year, which is what you decided, why wouldn't they be doing something big?
It's a very good question. And one thing you hear with the Cubs is that they have luxury tax concerns. Don't shoot the messenger here. And clearly they are a team that was thinking about selling, right? And things changed for them quickly. They kind of rallied. Stroman's value declined. And I don't know that that was as much a part of it as the fact that they started winning. Heimer Candelario will help. He's not a difference maker from what you hear and from what you see, right? But at the same time, they have another need for a left-handed reliever, and I think that if they fill it is where they're going to stop. It doesn't seem to me that they feel this team, while it's worthy of not selling and modest buying, it's not worthy of a big buy. It's not good enough to justify going all in. Now, we can debate that. You're playing in a division that is just okay still. Milwaukee's good. Cincinnati's good, but it's not like they're intimidating as far as trying to catch them. So the Cubs, if you wanted to look at it this way, could try to bully their way to a division title, but it doesn't seem to me that that's their strategy. It doesn't seem to me that's the course that they want to pursue.
Ken, staying on the Cubs, we've kind of beaten this up a little bit, but I'm still confused. They didn't give up a lot for Candelario, a lower level prospect, but why? Why do this? If you look at it, maybe I'm wrong here, and maybe it's kind of like I'm looking at this from an outsider, not a fan or a organizational view, but why make these trades? You're not the team the way it's built is not going to win a World Series. Yeah, you might win the division. Is it just to placate fans and say, look, we tried. We tried to win the division. We won the division. We got bumped in the first round. Now, listen, maybe they get hot and they make a run like the Phillies did last year, but the way their pitchers are going and their offense isn't great. So why do this and why not go the other way? Is this just again, just trying to say, hey, fans, we tried?
I'm going to kind of answer your question with a question, AJ. And you played for so many years, a team that plays the way they have over the last month and then does nothing. What does that send as a message to not just your fans who are kind of tired of selling? They've done it 2 years in a row, but to your clubhouse, to your players. When you have a veteran type team. Now, with the Orioles and Reds, for instance, they're upstart teams, they're younger. If these teams don't do much, I don't know that the clubhouse is going to even notice that much. But for a veteran team, you know this, and I'm going to put it to you. Does that affect things? Does that upset a group? And does it kind of send just the wrong message about where the organization is.
Well, it depends, though. It depends because also players are realists. And we look at our record and we say, well, we're around 500. We've kind of been around 500. We're in a bad division. As a player, you always look at the positive and say, oh, if we get in, we can win it. But then you're also like, well, I don't know if we can win it. I was on a team, 2015 at the Braves. We were 40-40, I believe. We traded away our whole team, and then we were tied with the Mets at the time. And the Mets went on in 2015 to go to the World Series, and we ended up losing almost 100 games because we traded away Kelly Johnson and a whole list of guys. But it's strange to me that a team doesn't look at it realistically. I understand it wasn't huge moves, but then again, as a player, I'm saying, well, why don't we go make the huge move? Why don't we go get a Verlander? Why don't we go get a Scherzer? If our front office believes we can do this, let's make the move that'll really give us a shot.
Because they believe, AJ, but they don't really believe, right?
So again, you answer my question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a hedge. It's not a big bet. It's a smaller bet, and it's kind of a compromise. I am sure there are people in the Cubs front office who look at this analytically and say, hey, we're not winning the World Series. We probably are not even winning the division. Let's sell Bellinger. Stroman, it would have been an interesting thing to see how he would have fared as a trade commodity the way he's pitching. But Bellinger certainly could have brought a decent prospect, maybe even more. They obviously decided that that would not be a good look for where they are right now. They are not up there yet. They are kind of here and trying to rise. And when you're doing that, any step back is not going to be received well. And really, you know what, too? It's time for them to try again. It's time for them to get back into the winning mode. They are the Chicago Cubs. They're not the Oakland A's, folks. They are the Cubs. Vast revenues. To me, there's no excuse for them not to be in a kind of a, not all-out win mode, but at least in an attempted winning cycle.
Yeah, it's a good call. They need to operate more like a big market team in the offseason, too, when they're spending. I know they got Dansby Swanson. Tyone didn't work out that well so far, but I'm with you, Ken. Hey, great stuff. Enjoy the rest of the day. We'll talk to you when it all clears.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate you. And just reminding everyone, Fair Territory is up there for you to listen to. If you missed it yesterday, it's on YouTube. That's AJ twice. You look great, AJ. That's me. It's on YouTube and it's on Apple and Spotify. Not just Fair Territory, which you can find on the Fair Territory pod feed or on the Foul Territory pod feed and on YouTube, but also you have the bonus edition from Ken that you'll get on Wednesday. And we spoke to Ken yesterday and put that out as a pod with Ken and Jim Bowden this morning. So many, many ways to listen to Ken if you missed him this